everyone, and welcome to episode 94 of the Best Day Ever Crafting Podcast. My name is Trisha, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Tie-Dye Diva. You can also find me on Instagram as _fibertree, and that is where I post lots of content about paper crafting, planning, journaling, and such. So if any of that interests you, then you can give me a follow over there too. If this is your very first time viewing the podcast, welcome in. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today. This is a podcast mainly about knitting and crochet and sewing, but I also talk on occasion about planning and journaling and pretty much any other craft I find myself doing between podcasts. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you have a warm or cool beverage with you and that you'll enjoy the content. I hope everyone is doing well. This is an epic weekend for makers. It is Rhinebeck weekend. And to be quite honest with you, I am having serious FOMO. I wish I was going to Rhinebeck, but it did not happen this year. So towards the end of the podcast, we'll just chat a little bit about what my plans are for this weekend in lieu of going to Rhinebeck. I'm going to try to create the perfect not going to Rhinebeck weekend. So hopefully that helps. That helps take away some of the sting from not going to Rhinebeck. So let's get started with today's content. I have one finished object. I have I'm going to catch you up to date on my current whips, things I've been working on, if you've been here before, things you've seen before, and some acquisitions. A couple since we last chatted, and a few from my previous yarn crawls. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I did a yarn crawl with my girlfriends in Maryland and Delaware a couple of months ago. And I never got to share those acquisitions with you. So I'll share those with you, as well as a few acquisitions from our vacation in the Outer Banks this year. So let's get right to it. Let me get a sip of water. I woke up feeling quite congested this morning. The weather has been really bizarre here in Maryland. We've had really overcast days, and it was supposed to be cloudy and rainy all day today, but the sun has been peeking in and out. Hopefully the clouds won't completely cover the sun and you'll be able to see well. So let's get started with sharing with you my finished object. I was able to complete the beach party socks. This is a pattern by Jody Brown, and she is also the one half of the Grocery Girls podcast. And here they are. The pattern as written is written for a shorty sock. You can make them as tall or as short as you want. I opted to knit about 3 inches before I started doing the heel flap. And actually the heel flap and gusset is actually an afterthought heel. So I knit down 3 inches and then I put just a little marker where I wanted the heel to go. I knitted down the rest of the sock and then I went back and did the afterthought heel, which does involve cutting into your knitting. I know that for a lot of people that just seems unthinkable, but I promise you it is so easy. And I remember, I will say, however, that I used to always default to an afterthought heel where I cut in the heel after I completed the sock. And then one pair of socks I did maybe about a year or two ago, the afterthought heel process was a complete disaster. And I think part of that was that I couldn't see well. I was working on a dark yarn, and I swore I would never do another afterthought heel because it was an absolute disaster. But this was just so pleasant because, as you can see, the yarn is nice and light. These are also knit on DK weight yarn. So that makes seeing your stitches when you pick them up so much easier. And now I definitely want to knit more DK weight socks, and I will definitely be using the Afterthought heel for that process. So I will link to a video that I first started watching when I first started doing Afterthought heel socks. I think once you actually see it, it'll make complete sense to you, and you'll love it just as much as I do. So as I mentioned, these are knit in a DK weight yarn, and let's see, what else can I say? All of the contrast colors that you see here were left over from previous projects. You can look on my Ravelry page, which I will link to in the description box below, for the information on which yarns I use. But like I said, they're all left over from previous projects, and I still have quite a bit of yarn left over. So it'll be fun to see what project those end up in. Maybe a pair of scrappy socks. But I absolutely love these. I'm not sure if I'm going to wear them out the house. They might be more like the indoor slipper sock. So I did contrast the heel. As you can see, this one is this beautiful bluish green, which is by the Plucky Knitter. The color is Modern Vintage. And then the other sock is this beautiful, beautiful green from Woolmize DK. And I'm not going to attempt to tell you what the color name is, because it is German and I have no idea how to pronounce it. But again, it is on my Ravelry page. So again, these are the Beach Party socks by Jody Brown, and I'm just so happy to have these finished. So let's get caught up on the things that I have been working on since we last chatted. Nothing new. I have not cast on any new projects. I've been working really hard on my existing projects. So last week I shared with you that I started a new blanket, which is just a basic granny square blanket. I am making a ton of these granny squares, and then I will be connecting them at the end for a blanket. So I was able to complete two and a quarter more squares. So this is my first square, all done. I think that's the back side. And I'm using just assorted fingering weight yarns on my hook size. My hook size is a 5mm H hook, and it's by Clover. And I really like this ergonomic handle because sometimes I do experience quite a bit of discomfort when crocheting. So this is quite lovely to work with. So that's square number 1, and this is my second square. So I'm doing 17 rounds of, what do you call this stitch? Give me a second. I guess granny stripes. It's like 3 double crochet in each space, and again that's 17 rounds. So I haven't measured how big these squares are, how many inches they are, but they're pretty substantial in size. So really enjoying these. This is definitely it's like potato chip crocheting. I was about to say knitting. It's potato chip crocheting. It's really hard to put them down once you started because they're so enjoyable, and I really love them when they're at this stage, when they're all tiny and just little itty bitty crochet squares. How lovely is that? So this will be, I might actually finish this one today, and I think that will bring my total to 11 squares thus far if I'm able to finish this one. So I'm slowly but surely making my way through this. I don't have a particular time in which I want to finish. This is the yarn that I will be using to connect the squares together. And this is Plymouth Yarns Electra Light. It's a superwash merino wool, 20% nylon and 5% Lorex. So the Lorex are those really pretty sparkles you see in there. So all my squares will be connected with this. I'm hoping that one will be enough, but I do believe this is a yarn I'd be able to pick up in other places if I need another one. So as you can see, that's going to be really, really pretty to join with. So this is like a head start on acquisitions, because I did pick this up from the yarn shop in Outer Banks, Knitting Addiction. I picked this up from Knitting Addiction when we were on vacation in Outer Banks. So it was pretty awesome because I was able to have her wind it up for me. I thought I was going to do some joining of my squares while I was there, but that didn't happen. So, but pretty soon I will be joining some squares together, because I don't want to get to the end of the project and then have to join them. So I think it's really smart to weave in any ends and join as I go, as opposed to waiting till the end. So let's see, let's move on into another WIP. I'll just show this to you real quick. I hope you're not tired of seeing it. I'm just taking my time to finish it. But this is my Pamplemousse sweater by Tiff Nealon, and it is knit in a worsted weight. And if you want to know what the colors are, which yarns I chose, you can just look on my Ravelry page, which will be linked in the description box below where the show notes are. But I am just about done with this first sleeve, and I did opt to do the, oh, what is it called? Hold on one second. This little special stitch here for the cuff. Why am I drawing a blank? Let me just show it to you. I know you're like screaming it. I want to say a Latvian braid, but that doesn't seem right. Hold on. Herringbone stitch. So you had the option to either do ribbing or the herringbone stitch for the cuff, and I decided to do the herringbone stitch. I've never done the herringbone stitch before, so I was really apprehensive about doing it. I thought it was going to take way too long and it was going to really hold me up from finishing my sleeve cuff, which is why I hesitated so long to finish these sleeves. But I'm so glad that I went ahead and did it anyway, because this braid, I keep wanting to call it a Latvian braid. It is called this herringbone stitch is gorgeous. It's so pretty, and you know, it's not hard at all. Not difficult at all. I didn't even have to use a video. I just followed her written instructions, which were perfect. And it's not perfect. I've definitely got some mistakes in there, but I'm not going to rip back. I'm just going to do better with the second sleeve. And the color work is also on the bottom of the sleeve, which is really, really pretty. So my knitting goal for tonight is to finish this sleeve and start sleeve number 2. If I was going to Rhinebeck, this would have been my Rhinebeck sweater. So it would be so awesome if it was finished and I'd be able to wear it this weekend, but that's not going to happen. So I will work really, really hard to get this sleeve finished, and I'm going to make a promise to myself that I'm not going to show the sweater to you again until the sleeves are done. So not to put pressure on myself, but that's like a nice little goal for me to have, because I really want that sweater done. One more WIP to share with you, which you've also seen before, my Soldotna crop sweater. I've experienced some trials and tribulations with this sweater. One of which I mentioned last week, which was my color, the issues with the colors for the main color, for the body of the sweater, because I realized that these two colors are really different from one another. One is much darker than the other. But I decided to go ahead and alternate skeins, and that actually worked out really, really well. So no issues with the colors. I'm just alternating, and even though it's giving it a variegated look, it still works really well. But I have a couple of other issues since I've started working the body. So let me just show you the body, and then I will tell you what the issue is. So here we are. The yoke is completely finished, and I've started working on the body of the sweater, which is, as you can see, those two skeins of DK weight alternating, and you can see how they definitely look variegated, but still looks really, really good. And I decided to do the option on this sweater where you are doing these little blips of color. I could have done it just solid, but I love that. I think those are so, so pretty. So that turned out really, really well. The coloring of the skein is no longer an issue. I tried the sweater on. It fits perfectly, so that's not an issue. However, there's something really bizarre going on with this neckline. As you can see, even when I have it sitting here, it seems to be a really sharp increase in the yoke of the sweater, which is causing the neckline of the sweater to sit up really, really high. So when I put the sweater on, I have all of this extra fabric in the back of the sweater. It looks fine when I pull the sweater down in the back, but I don't want to have to pull my sweater down constantly to make it fit. So I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm going to finish the sweater because everything else is perfect otherwise. If blocking doesn't resolve this and cause this to lay flat on my neck, I'm going to have to rip out this collar, and I will probably rip it out until to the short rows, which is probably about it's going to be quite a bit. So even from about here all the way up, I'm going to have to rip out to get it to fit well. And then I'm just going to have to knit up, and I'm not even going to try to figure out short rows. I'll just knit up and then complete the ribbing after that. So I do take a little bit of solace in that I'm not the only one who's had this problem. A viewer, Denise, oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but we were conversing about our Soldotna sweaters here on YouTube, and she is having the exact same problem. So that's somewhat of a consolation. And I think I saw on Ravelry, looking at the project pages, before I knit mine, I did notice that some of the sweaters were sitting up really high on the neckline. So I don't know. I know this is one of Caitlin Hunter's earlier patterns, so maybe she was trying to figure out the increase rate for the short rows early on in her pattern designing career. Other than this little issue, the pattern is perfect. And I do think that it's fixable. It's just that it's a shame that I have to take out so much knitting that's already been done. But I love this sweater so much, and I don't want to I'm not going to rip out the whole sweater just to fix the neckline. So one way or another, I'm going to work it out, and just stay tuned. But isn't it pretty? It's so, I'll turn it on this side because I'm not 100% pleased with the way my beginning of round look, but I love this sweater so much. This might be the most ornate color work I have ever done. Let me stand up so you can see it well. This might be the most ornate color work I've ever done on a sweater, and in that the color work is really throughout the entire sweater. So it is a little bit of a slog. It's not fast knitting because you're doing that color work for the body, but I mean, look at that. It is so completely worth it. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is I purchased this kit quite some time ago, and quite honestly, I don't know if I'm going to have enough to finish the body of this sweater. It is a crop sweater, but I don't think I want my sweater as cropped as the pattern calls for. And I think I've told you once before, I have quite a long torso in proportion to the rest of my body. So I might have to do some yarn shopping and yarn matching anyway, to try to find maybe one more skein that will coordinate well with these. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to name this project the Trials and Tribulations sweater, because whew, it is giving me a run for the money. But I do believe that when it's all finished, it's going to be quite lovely. And I'm so pleased about the project bag I chose for this sweater. I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfect match. I don't always match up my projects with my bags, but this is a perfect match. This bag by Blue Spring Craft. I picked this up at, was it? Yes, Maryland Sheep and Wool this year at the Miss Babs booth. Okay, so I think that's it. Those are the only things I've been working on since I last recorded. I've been trying to be really focused on my whips, not casting on anything new. I do have a couple more whips, languishing whips that I want to pull out. One is a cowl, one is a pair of socks. I actually think I have 2 pairs of socks. And I have another whip, which is the Killer Queen cowl. I'm pretty sure I showed that on a podcast episode. I'm going to frog that because it's not giving me joy right now. So I'm going to frog that, repurpose the yarn or recake the yarn, and use that for another project. So I think once I'm done with those, I will have gotten a hold on my whips. And that feels really, really good. And then that gives me space to cast on for other things. So let's move on into acquisitions. So let's start out with the yarn crawl that I went on. And I'm going to have to go to my calendar so that I can see, when did we do the yarn crawl? We did the yarn crawl on August 24th through August 27th. And all of my yarn, all of my purchases had been sitting here in a bag in my craft room. I hadn't put the things away. So this week I said, you know what? In preparation for not going to Rhinebeck weekend, I'm going to put these things away. And then that should give me some, that was almost like a little part 2 shopping experience, just putting away those acquisitions. So I'll share with you a few of those things. So on our yarn crawl, we started out at Vulcan's Rest Fibers. I'm going to insert a picture of the yarn shop here, if I have it. It is in Chesapeake City, Maryland. So I'm terrible with geography. I'm not even going to try to explain where it is in relation to where I live, but from where I live, it takes about an hour to get there. And that was on the way to the Delaware shops we were going to visit that weekend. So Vulcan's Rest, again, is in Chesapeake City, Maryland. And if you live anywhere near that area or Washington, D.C., Virginia, you have to go to Vulcan's Rest. They have everything. They have hand-dyed yarn. They have yarn from big names like Barocco, quite a bit of Barocco. They have novelty yarn. They have lots of project bags, knitting needles, notions, everything from Rowan yarns to, like I said, Barocco. They have some local yarns. And then in the back of the store is where they keep all of the sale yarns, which is usually quite a bit of sale yarns you can shop from. And let's see what else. So, and also in the back of the store is where they have all of their spinning supplies. So they sell spinning wheels, they sell weaving looms, and all of the accessories and attachments for the spinning wheels and weaving looms. I mean, it is an amazing place. It is huge. It is massive. And in on the side of the yarn shop, there is a little cafe. I think it's called the Little Lamb Cafe. It's the Little Lamb Cafe. So we actually started out at the cafe before we did some shopping. So Vulcan's Rest, an absolute must visit. It's an amazing place. So what did I pick up from Vulcan's Rest? I'll share with you a couple of things. First of all, this project bag. How cute is that? Okay, you guys know I couldn't resist that. Look at those cats. There's my Cash right there, little light gray cat with the aqua green cat eye glasses. So of course I couldn't resist this. And the inside is perfect, completely lined, and it says play, kitty, meow, and it's got little paw prints. So how cute is that? So that's one thing I picked up from Vulcan's Rest. Okay, so here is my other thing I picked up from Vulcan's Rest I wanted to share with you. They were having a sale. All of their summer yarns, cotton and linen, I believe was, I almost want to say it was 40% off. So I decided to pick up 10 of these. This is Rowan cotton. This Rowan cotton is in the color black, and it is 126 yards, and it is a 100% combed cotton, and it feels really, really good. It almost feels like a mercerized cotton, but it feels like it has a nice hand to it, and I don't know if you can see the twist on it, but I'm hoping I enjoy working with this, because like I said, I got 10 skeins, and I was thinking that a tank top for next summer would be amazing to knit out of this. And it was $8.50 per skein, but like I said, it was like 40% off, so really good deal for a sweater quantity of yarn. So looking forward to working with this. And they're all from the same dye lot, so I shouldn't have any issues with color changes or anything. After Vulcan's Rest, we went to a yarn shop. I believe this was also in the state of Maryland, still heading to, no, this is actually in Delaware. So after we left Vulcan's Rest, we went to the Yarn Maven. And I'll insert a picture of the front of this cute little store here. The Yarn Maven is in Smyrna, Delaware, and it is just an amazing, cute shop. Not too small, not too big. They also had an amazing array of yarns. The first thing that caught me and Tasha's eye when we walked in was the Manchalope yarn, which was sitting right, as soon as you walk into the store, it's like right in front of you, sitting on top of a shelf. So it's like both our eyes, we saw the Manchalope, and then we looked at each other. And Tasha ended up getting maybe a couple of sweater quantities of the Manchalope, and I didn't get any because I have a sweater quantity of that yarn already. But in addition to the Manchalope, we somehow all gravitated towards the back of the store, which they had lots and lots of sale yarns too. So we had a really good time peeking through there. They had lots of hand-dyed yarns. They also had lots of yarns from Barocco, a lot of Regia sock yarn, a huge selection of Regia sock yarn. They even had some acrylic and wool blends, and they had a ton of samples. I love a store with tons of samples, so that was nice. I even tried on a hat that I thought was really, really cute. And what else did they have? They had kits, lots of accessories, almost the entire Coco Knits line of accessories. I almost caved on that sweater washing kit, but I did not get that. But what I did get are a couple of skeins of the Regia sock yarn. This was in their sale bin, and I just thought these colors were really, really pretty. And this one here, this is nice and fallish. And it knits up into this design. And this one here knits up into this design. So these were in their sale bin, again, as I mentioned. And I got a couple of other things. They also had some Rowan Alpaca Classic at a really, really good price in the sale bin. So I picked up a few of these. I was thinking, I picked up this color, like a darker, earthier color, not quite brown, not quite tan, and also in black. So I was thinking just a basic striped cowl would be really pretty out of this yarn. So yeah, I hit their sale bin really hard. So that was there from the Yarn Maven. There was one other yarn shop we visited in Delaware, was Sea Needles. Sea Needles is in Bethany Beach, Delaware. And Sea Needles, they sell not only yarn, but lots of cross stitch and needlework and embroidery supplies. So another cute shop, a bit disorganized, but if you really got in there and really started looking, you could find some really amazing things. So one of the things that caught my eye was a pattern for a cowl. So I love that pattern so much, I decided to purchase the book that the cowl was in. And this book is from Barocco, and it features their yarn called Carousel. Now, the first thing that caught my eye was a sample that they had of this cowl. This is the Tiana cowl. Okay, so can you see the texture in there? Again, this picture doesn't do it much justice. Maybe you can see it a little bit better right here. Yeah, there you go. Can you see that texture? It almost reminds me of the stitch I used in the coffee break shawl. But a beautiful cowl, and you only need one ball of yarn to knit this cowl. So I picked up the color, this color here. This is the color that was actually sampled in the shop of the Barocco Carousel. So I definitely want to get this cast on for next spring. Or maybe not even next spring, because this is, I thought this was a cotton, but it is a 52% wool, 48% acrylic blend. So again, Barocco Carousel, and it's 418 yards. It's a little bit heavier than a fingering weight on a size 4 to 6 US or 3.5 to 4 millimeter knitting needle. So very excited about that. And actually, I love every single sweater, every single pattern, excuse me, in this book, including the cover sweater. But the sweater that's really got my attention is this Fakai. Look at that. Look at the sleeves. Okay, you know how I feel about a dramatic sleeve. So beautiful, right? So this might end up on my needles. I don't know if I want to use that yarn or not, but maybe I could. I'm gonna have to make me a cup of coffee and look at really, really closely at this book and maybe pick out some future projects. There's even a raglan sweater in here that's really pretty called the Avalon. I mean, look at that. Look at the raglan shaping on that sweater. Look at the beautiful yarn and texture. There's some texture going on in there too. So yeah, I might have to add a couple of these patterns in my queue. Again, Barocco Carousel. This is book 447. And I got this from Sea Needles. So, oh, I know the other thing I bought from let's go back to the Yarn Maven. So the Yarn Maven, I also picked up yarn to knit my tessellated vest, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. So, like I said, that was back in August that we went, and which I knew which skeins of Spin Cycle I wanted to use to knit the tessellated vest. I just needed a solid color for the sweater, and this is the color that I chose. So this would be the main color, and this is Berroco Ultra Wool DK. It's 100% superwash wool, and I would definitely consider this to be like a light DK. But I knew I wanted like a burnt orange to go with this Spin Cycle, which is Woololo. This is the color of the Spin Cycle. And you also need a lace weight mohair or Surrey alpaca to go with it. So this is the color I was thinking for my Surrey alpaca. This is the Birdie Light Fingering, which is an alpaca silk blend. The only issue is that I only have one of these. And this is the color Airmail. So I may have to go on DStash to see if I can find another one. I know she's having an update this weekend, but this color is not in her update. So another option that I have is this yarn from Dapper Dye Works, who's no longer dyeing yarn. This is their Fluffy Fingering. And this is an alpaca and merino cotton blend, and the color is Sea Spray. The only thing with this is that this is a lot brighter, so I don't know whether that would throw things off or whether it would enhance it. I think that this lighter color is really more so what I was going for. So this isn't something I have to cast on immediately, but that was my purpose in purchasing this, to complete the yarn that I need to knit the tessellated vest. However, as I'm watching other people talk about their vest and their sweater on other podcasts, they refer to that sweater and vest as a slog. They say that it moves so slowly to knit. So I don't know, I may have to rethink those plans to knit that, but we'll see. We shall see. So let's move on into a couple of things I purchased when I went to the Outer Banks on our vacation. This was the first week in September. So let's first talk about what I picked up from Knitting Addiction. One thing I love about Knitting Addiction is she also has lots of samples in her store, and you know, samples sell. So one of the first things I saw was a pattern for these nested baskets. How adorable are these? However, the yarn that she used to make hers was this yarn from Queensland Yarns. This is called Karen's, which is considered a cotton blend. It is a cotton blend. And let me see, it is blended with acrylic. So it's 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. And I believe I can crochet all three of the baskets with just one ball. So this is going to stay out because I would like to make these sooner than later. These little baskets I can see really coming in handy. I could put them in the bathroom, put cotton balls in the bigger one. I can use the smaller one for stitch markers and point protectors and such. So they have a lot of use, and they were so cute knit up in this, crocheted up in this colorway. So again, that's Karen's by Queensland Yarns. Another pattern and sample she had was for this hat, which is the Easy Slouchy hat, and this is designed by Jeannie Schrader, who owns the shop, The Knitting Addiction. I'm not particularly crazy about the yarn that was used in this pattern. However, the sample in the store featured this yarn, which was absolutely lovely and stunning. So this is the Cascade Yarns Eco Alpaca. This is another one of those yarns that if I saw it in online or in a yarn shop without a sample, I wouldn't have paid much attention to it. But Knit Up in that hat was gorgeous and had a pretty good price point. It is 100% undyed baby alpaca, which is awesome. So I want to knit the easy slouchy hat out of that yarn. The final thing I picked up from Knitting Addiction was these two beautiful skeins. How gorgeous is that? I'm just thinking this would be so pretty in a shawl. Oh, so beautiful. So this is from Ruby and Roses. This is on her plump rose base, which is 85% merino, 15% nylon. So there's a lot of color going on in here. There's that pretty green, aqua, pinks, reds, blues. So beautiful. And I couldn't resist. So I picked up those two from Knitting Addiction. The other yarn shop I went to in the Outer Banks is called Yarn and More. Now, I visited Yarns and More years ago, maybe around the first time we started going to the Outer Banks. And I remember going in Yarn and More years ago, maybe about 10 years ago. And I was like, wait, this is not a yarn shop, because they had some yarn, they had some cotton, they had a ton of Red Heart. But more than yarn, they had a lot of drugstore type things like pain reliever, cough syrup. So I was totally confused. I was like, is this a yarn shop or is it a drugstore or what is it? And I don't think I purchased anything. Fast forward to 2023, I went in and it's a completely different setup. They have hand-dyed yarn, no Red Heart. Not that I have anything against Red Heart, but definitely not what I'm looking for when I go to a yarn shop. So lots of hand-dyed, lots of Barocco, lots of yarn for knitting baby blankets, lots of needles, lots of other accessories. So like I said, they're completely different setup, and I was really happy about that. So what I picked up from there, the only thing I think I picked up some point protectors that over there on the table. I may go grab them in a second. But whenever I go on vacation and I go to a yarn shop, I always try to find something that is specific to the area. Do you have like a color that's specifically dyed for the yarn shop? And they did. This was dyed by Ba Yarns. This is on their Savannah base, which is a 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, and 75% superwash merino. The color of this yarn is Outer Banks Sunset. How gorgeous is that? So pretty, right? And let me just run over here. I wonder if I can, I'm gonna grab these point protectors that I got. These point protectors, how cute are those? So these are little, doesn't say what it is. These are by Minnie and Pearl, but it's like a little minivan. There we go. So cute. And the little tag says peace on the back. And these here are roller skates, which I thought were adorable. I do not roller skate. My roller skating days are over. Because at this stage in my life, if I fall, it would be catastrophic. I'm pretty certain of that, but I just thought these were too cute. So, finally, let's talk about the quilt shops I visited in the Outer Banks. I had already planned to go to the store Shoreline Handiworks. I've been to Shoreline Handiworks before. Amazing shop. Their setup of their shop is they basically converted a warehouse into a quilting shop, which is just genius, really, because in the back of the store they have these huge long arm machines. I'm talking like 4 to 5 feet, just huge machines that would be space prohibitive in a lot of places, but the fact that they use a space like that to convert it into a quilt shop was really, really genius. So they've got the long arm machines in there, which leads me to believe you could make a quilt and send it to them and they would do the quilting for you on their long arms. A huge array of fabrics. They have tons of samples. The samples are like way up on the wall, so everywhere you look, even though it's in this like garage bay type space, it doesn't feel like that at all. It's just very warm, open, and inviting, and it's just beautiful fabric and quilt samples everywhere. And they also sell Bernina sewing machines and sergers. Any accessory you can think of for quilting was there. So that was quite a lovely visit to Shoreline Handiworks. The only thing is, if you decide to go to the Outer Banks and you go there, check the store hours, because they're only open like 3 days a week. And even the days that they're open, it's just for a few hours. So you have to catch them when you can. But the thing I purchased from Shoreline Handiworks was this pattern from Noodlehead, which is called the Divided Basket. And I am such a sucker for Noodlehead patterns. I have so many of them and I have yet to make them. But I just love the way that they're presented on their pattern pages, and it just makes you want to make them. They also had a sample of this in the store, and I was like, oh, I would love to have one of these. This would work for a knitting project, or you could use it to store journaling supplies, or even a quilt project. So a hand quilting project. I'm thinking like hexagons or English paper piecing. Just so many different uses for this basket. So I did pick this up, and I didn't buy the fabric to make it because I already have so much fabric here. I think I could pull from my fabric stash, but I did purchase all the notions that I need to make this. So I just need to pull some fabric, read over this pattern, and get on the ball. Okay, so finally, the last place that we visited while we were in the Outer Banks is called the Rusty Crow Quilt Shop. This is a brand new quilt shop in the Outer Banks. I think they've been there for about a year. They moved from, I think they said San Diego, California, to the Outer Banks. They had the quilt shop in San Diego, but for financial reasons, they decided to move it to the Outer Banks. So happy about that, and it is just a delightful shop. And I wouldn't have known about this shop if the folks at Shoreline Handiworks hadn't told me about it. So that's always nice when you've got two similar types of stores in a close proximity, but yet they're willing to share their business and tell each other about each other's stores. I think that's wonderful. So the Rusty Crow Quilt Shop also had a ton of samples, lots and lots of samples. They also had beautiful kits of embroidery thread, lots of patterns for embroidery and hand stitching, which is something I really love doing when I sit down and take the time to do it. Lots of fabric, beautiful fabrics. It was a lovely, lovely shop. Not too big, not too small, just right. Also lots of notions, scissors, snips. Oh, another beautiful thing they had is this huge wall of wool fabric in all different types of colors and textures and patterns. And Ray actually picked up a few of those to use as pocket squares. And I think he's worn them, this week he actually wore one of the pieces of fabric as a pocket square. And it looked really, really nice. So that was nice for him to be able to find something he liked there. And what I picked up from there is another pattern. I saw this online when they told me about the quilt shop. I went immediately to the quilt shop to see what they had, and I saw this pattern. It's called Edgar Allan Poe. How adorable is that? A play on the poet Edgar Allan Poe, but it's these two cute little pincushions, and I mean, how adorable are they? I keep saying finally, and then I keep seeing things on my table here that I need to talk about. So this is truly the final. About 2 weeks ago, my niece, Katora, set off on a trip to Israel. Long story short, she started her trip in Amsterdam, and she was due to arrive in Israel about 3 days after the war broke out. So when we woke up that Saturday morning and we found out that a war had literally broke out overnight, I just burst into tears. I was just so, and I knew she wasn't in Israel, but it was just so overwhelming, the possibilities. I think it was a bit of fear and of gratitude that she hadn't gotten there yet, and just a whole bunch of emotions. But anyway, long story short, she FaceTimed us and told us that she was waiting on the travel companies for directions on what to do. And of course, they did cancel the trip the following day, and she headed back home a couple of days later. So she's back home safe and sound. But while she was in Amsterdam, actually before she went away, I said, Katora, if you if you happen to see a yarn store called Stephen and Penelope, just peek in there for me. Take a couple of pictures. It'll be like, I don't know if I'll ever get to go, but at least I can like live vicariously through you. But only if you're near there, because I have no idea where this yarn shop is in comparison to the touristy places in Amsterdam. So she ended up FaceTiming me a couple of hours after we had texted her and told her about, the war had broke out, pay attention to the news and pay attention to your travel instructions. She FaceTimed me and says, Aunt Trish, guess where I am? She was in Stephen and Penelope. She had actually taken a train, or I don't know how she got there, but anyway, it was about 40 minutes away from where she was staying. And she took time out of her scheduled trip to go to Stephen and Penelope for me. She's such a sweetheart. Love her so much. She is so, out of our siblings, it's just two of us left, me and my older sister, Kim. So my older sister, Kim, had two daughters, Katora and Jamila, who are the love of my life. And then I had the boys, Armani and Adrian. So those girls are like my daughters, and it's just like, love them so much. If you're an auntie, you know. So anyway, Katora FaceTimes me and says, you never believe where I am. I'm in the store. I'm in the yarn shop. So I'm just like, all those tears earlier turned to joy and happiness. And she says, I'm going to walk around the store so you can see if there's anything you want, or, just so you can see what the shop looks like. Beautiful shop. So much color. I was able to see Stephen West yarn, the bicycle yarns, which is really, really nice to see all those colors. She showed me some kits. She didn't know what she was looking at, but I was like, oh my goodness, those are Geo Gradient kits for the Stephen West Make Along. And so many other things. So she says, do you want anything? Do you see anything you want? And I was like, it's just so overwhelming because it's just so much. And I started to get a gray-scaled black, gray, and white Geo Gradient kit, because that's something I don't have in my stash, a lot of gray and whites. So I was like, no, I better not do that, because I already have yarn picked out for the make along. So then she fixated on this. And I said, that is what I want. This yarn here, it's called, I think it's Bilum. I'm pronouncing it the way it's spelled, B-I-L-U-M. Bilum Yarns. And this is their Lolly base. Lolly. It's probably Lolly, L-O-L-I. It's 100% merino wool, and it's 500 meters. And it's a gradient. How beautiful is that? So, it was just so incredible, so ironic that she saw this yarn there, because I was actually looking at this the week before she left. I don't know how I even came across it. When I was surfing the web, and I was like, oh man, that is gorgeous. So I looked it up, and the price point was pretty reasonable, but the shipping would have been $20 to get it over here. And I don't know, I just couldn't justify it. So the fact that she was there, the fact that she made the special trip to go there and to pick up this yarn for me that I was looking at the week before, it's just so special. And I don't know what it's going to be. It might be the color work yoke of a sweater. It might just be a simple shawl, but it's going to be something really spectacular. I might even make something for her. We'll see. But so happy about that. And I also got a Stephen and Penelope little project bag to go with it. And she's such a sweetheart. She wouldn't accept any money for it. She's like, no, this is my little gift, my little souvenir. I thought I was getting olive oil, but I ended up with yarn. So even better. I feel like this was a really chatty episode when it came to the acquisitions. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you are finding so much joy in your making. Are you going to Rhinebeck this weekend? Today is Friday, October 20th. So you may have already been to Cake Palooza. You may be on your way to Indie Untangled or to Woolen Folk. What are your plans for the weekend? If you aren't going to Rhinebeck, let me know what you will be doing. I'm going to try to recreate the perfect not going to Rhinebeck weekend. I'm going in search of apple cider donuts later today. It's the last thing I need, but I'm going to get me some apple cider donuts. Maybe take a ride tomorrow, see some leaves change. Maybe do a little bit of shopping with the Indie Untangled online vendors. There's some vendors with Indie Untangled who have special colorways for the Rhinebeck weekend. So I'll be taking a peek at those. A couple of handbag makers who will also be selling online. And just staying connected to Instagram so that I can feel like I'm there even though I'm not there. Yeah, so that's what I'll be doing. Lots of knitting. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the best of not being at Rhinebeck. Okay, I think that's all I have to share with you today. Again, continue to find so much joy in your making. Let me know what you're working on. Do you have any ideas for this beautiful yarn? Let me know. Let me know. I would really appreciate that. So stay safe and well, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.